Good afternoon. This is a dev track, and this is a talk about security. So just to warn you, I'm a nerd, and it's getting a bit nerdy right now. But I do think security is a very important issue, and it's not talked about enough in augmented and virtual reality. We know that because we work with a lot of enterprise customers, and they always want to talk to us about security. So as I said, and like I was introduced as, I've been working in the games industry and in augmented and virtual reality for a really long time. And not only the glasses give it away, I'm a nerd. I am running a company called Vuframe. We're working with 25 people on an AR/VR content platform. We are located just outside of Regensburg, and this is our 5th year in business. We're serving about 100 enterprise customers, and we have 900 online subscribers for our platform. So this is just goes to show that we have a little bit of experience with this topic. So what's security? And I actually have got a funny comment on LinkedIn last night when I announced this talk, when I said the talk was about AR and VR security. The comment was, okay, are we talking about installing antivirus software on the Microsoft HoloLens 2? And I was like, oh God, please, let's not be there yet. This, for me, is not security. Hopefully, it won't come to us having to install antiviral software on our headsets. It might, but let's just keep that a couple of years in the future. When I talk about security in AR and VR, I actually am talking about data security in augmented and virtual reality. And in order to approach this topic of data security, I want to talk about 4 main topics. I want to talk about how XR applications in general work, that there is an inherent problem that CAD and 3D files contain a lot of intellectual property that you don't see on first sight. Then there's also a couple of challenges with 3D formats in general. And I want to give you a perspective of what can be a security-conscious way ahead. So you actually can take something from this talk that makes it a little bit easier to manage the projects in AR and VR that you are managing today or that you would like to start. So first, let's look at how augmented and virtual reality or extended reality XR applications work. In general, what you usually do when you talk about a training simulation, when you talk about a sales application or any other sort of application that shows a product in 3D, you most of the time start with CAD or 3D files of that product. You have those CAD or 3D files in one of these formats or other CAD or 3D formats that are out there. And you want to get these files as an AR or VR application on one of these devices, whether it's a HoloLens, Oculus, HTC Vive, or whether it's just an iPad Pro running ARKit. You want to get your CAD files in a usable way onto one of these devices, on one of these operating systems. And that's also very important because I put HTML5 there, and HTML5 is a very open platform. It's run by JavaScript, which is a very insecure language. So there's also some challenges in the operating systems we're talking about. So usually what happens when you want to put those files into an application is that you need to manually optimize them because they are way too big to run out of the box. You usually get the programmer to do it, especially during proof of concept phases where it's just important to get a pilot or a proof up and running very quickly without needing more budget than you actually have available. And most of the time, you're not doing all of that in your own company. Most of the time, you're going to a service provider, you're going to an agency, you're going to an outsourcing company to tackle that project for you, especially during the proof of concept phase. So your own IT, your own data security regulations won't cover the area where this application is actually developed, which is also something to think about. So at the end of the day, what we're really doing is we're shipping our CAD files or our 3D product files onto an augmented or virtual reality enabled device in order to make our app work. And then at the end of the day, we have an app like this. You can check them out in the Expo. You can do design reviews, you can do training, you can do product demonstrations in virtual reality. Or you have an app like that, where you do product demonstrations or you do training in augmented reality. The problem is that when you ship those applications, depending on who is the end user of that application, you need to be very conscious of what you're actually shipping to them with the files that are contained in the application. And if we're starting to build this application based on 3D product files, based on CAD files, then we're actually shipping, in the worst case, all our IP to an unknown third party, for example, if it's a public app. And if you go today in the App Store and download any car configurator or product configurator application that has an augmented reality component, it's actually very easy to go into the source code and start reverse engineering the 3D product data that's contained in those applications. So we're not talking about legality, we're talking about security. And security always assumes there's an unknown attacker who doesn't care about the law and wants to get to your maybe patent-protected designs of your products, the inner workings of your products. And all of this is very important if you think about the digital blueprint of your products, which is the CAD file. All the products today are planned on a computer using computer-aided drawing software. This is a huge market worldwide. It's used across industries, and it basically gives your engineers a way to digitally design and build up products in the computer, which are then used to actually build your product. This is perfect because, for example, if you look at this car, you can actually use these files to visualize the product before it has been physically built. And that's the value proposition of computer-aided drawing, of CAD, that you can actually see something which isn't there yet. I can see this little part, this little machine part, before it's manufactured. And I can actually see the product structure, I can see the product function, and because it's very precisely engineered in a computer, I can get precise measurements for all the parts which make up this CAD model, this product. Most of the time, I can also get from a CAD file, I can get a bill of materials. And if the product uses other products, which I buy, parts, to build up my product, I can get IDs, I can get names, and I can get even more measurements down to the millimeter or micrometer precision. And all of this is contained in a CAD file. We call this, at Vuframe, we call this CAD metadata. It can be contained in a CAD file, it doesn't need to be contained, but if it's contained, then your CAD file suddenly is much, much more sensitive than in case it's not contained. And then we also have this, this very useful function of computer-aided drawing is that you always have all your parts of your product in a computer. And you can do things like that. You can look at all the parts that make up your product. You can see where they go. You can see how many there are. So you can extrapolate a lot of information based on a CAD drawing, based on a CAD file. And now, imagine you give all of that to an outsourcing company in the eastern part of the world to build up a very low-cost, augmented and virtual reality prototype. They suddenly have your product with all its parts, maybe with a bill of materials, because the file structure within the CAD file contains your bill of materials. They have maybe proprietary information like where you are sourcing your parts for your product. Maybe one of the names of the parts contains the manufacturer and the product ID. So this is actually one of the reasons why CAD files are kept under lock and key. Any sensible company keeps the manufacturing files, the prototype type files for their products under lock and key. They are the safeguarded secret. They are the crown jewels, if you will. And now you have the augmented and virtual reality industry telling those companies that you can save and cut a lot of costs by developing applications based on your CAD files. And for us, it's actually daily business to hear people tell us, no, you can't have our CAD. Our CAD is way too valuable. We cannot give that to you. Because they are aware that all of this information is contained. Then there's these other companies, they have maybe the strategy of publicly making available their CAD files on sites like GrabCAD or BIM Object or something like that, where they provide the CAD files as an additional service to their product, which is fine. Most of the time that's products that don't contain any IP or something else. So there's also that strategy. But if you think about, or if you are security aware about your CAD files, then we come to the third topic, the inherent challenges of 3D file formats. 3D file formats, and CAD is a 3D file format, they have one inherent problem. They are very open. Everybody can buy or get CAD software to open a CAD file once he gets his fingers on a CAD file. All these formats, all these CAD tools, all these, whether it's proprietary or open source, all these formats contain most of the information I just outlined. So not only do you have a lot of different formats where you actually are faced with the requirement of analyzing what data is contained in what type of format, because obviously you can convert format A to format B. There's also the issue that a lot of formats have been around for 25 years or longer. So you have, for example, an FBX version 2.17, 2.15, 2.13, FBX version 5. You have IFC version 1, 2, 3, 4, and then because it went to 4 so quickly, they start changing it to 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. So there's a lot of different specifications and versions of these formats out there. And depending on in which format you put your CAD file, they might contain different levels of information, different levels of IP. And it would be your job as someone looking for an augmented or virtual reality application to make sure that the files are cleaned before they are given to a third-party supplier. There's also different types to store data. There's real-time 3D, which is polygon-based, and then there's CAD, which is sort of vector-based in 3D. And converting from one format to the other format is not like converting something from PNG to JPEG. Anybody can do that. I, as a nerd, usually joke that even people in marketing can do that. For 3D, it's not that simple. If you want to convert one 3D format to another 3D format, you most of the time either need someone who knows about all these different CAD programs, so you need an engineer, or if push comes to shove, you need a 3D graphics guy or even a programmer to translate between these different types of formats. And in order to validate what sort of content and what sort of information is contained in the transformed file, they need to tell you. So you yourself cannot know very easily. And then there's the other issue that we're not talking about small file sizes here. Depending on the industry, a CAD file or a set of CAD files which make up a product can reach 50, 100, 150 gigabytes of data. Now try to look at 150 gigabytes of data manually to find out whether that contains sensitive information or not. Large file sizes. And then there's the last issue is that all this data that's contained within a very large CAD file, most of the time gets stripped away anyway. Because as soon as you ship that file to a supplier to build an AR or VR application for you, what they are doing is they're stripping away either parts of your product or parts of the complexity or parts of the contained information to make the model smaller, the file size smaller, to actually be able to run on an augmented or virtual reality device. Because most of the time, these files that you have of your products are 10, 100, or even 1,000 times too complex to run out of the box in an end-user friendly fashion on an iPad Pro or on an HTC Vive. You need to reduce it to get good performance, to get good usability, and to make it user-friendly. That's especially true when we talk about devices like the HoloLens. Now HoloLens 2 has an enhanced capability to render stuff in the cloud and then to deliver it onto the device, which makes it a little bit easier to address these issues. But if you want to shift a file onto the HoloLens, it cannot be very complex. It needs to be reduced from the initial complexity of the CAD file. So now let's assume you did all that. You checked or you made sure that you gave maybe a cleaned, maybe you didn't care about it. You gave some sort of file set to your development department or to an external supplier to build an application for you, to build an AR application or a VR application for you, and you actually deployed it on some sort of app store on a popular operating system. Maybe in-house, maybe publicly. Like a lot of people put apps online on the Google Play Store or on the Apple App Store just for a lack of a better way. They put it online so 10 people in their department can download it, because you can't share apps very easily on mobile operating systems. So after you did all this process and you shipped your app, you went through the manual conversion, you went through the manual optimization to get the complexity down, or your supplier did. You spent a lot of hours. Not only the supplier spent a lot of hours and billed you a lot of hours, you also personally spent a lot of hours managing the project, quality controlling the project, and shipping the project. You did all of that. You have a shipped product. That's great. Now let's assume by mistake or by not being security aware, some data that shouldn't have went into the application actually went into the application. You published a unstripped CAD file, an uncleaned CAD file, to an application which lives on the App Store. Now let's assume this application, it's available on the App Store. You have an attacker who wants to go get your IP. You have a very innovative product, you have a patent for it, let's say it's an engineering product, and you published something to train people with this product. Most of the time, actually 100% of the time, AR and VR applications run on gaming technology. They run on a 3D gaming engine. Most popular choices are the Unreal Engine or the Unity gaming engine. There's a very inherent problem in that, because they are used to build computer games. And today, computer games are the most heavily battled industry when it comes to copyright law, when it comes to copyright protection. And big gaming properties, they are battling hackers and people who want to steal the games and put them online without copy protection every day. And every time a new copy protection is invented, it takes a couple of weeks, a couple of days, a couple of months until it's cracked, until it's made unsafe. And this makes it very, very hard for augmented and virtual reality to stay ahead of the curve, because these tools to attack the data security of your applications, they are coming from a completely different industry. And they are coming from an immensely, immensely popular industry. The games industry today, okay, now I actually don't know what the state is today, but I think it's bigger than the movie business. I heard it's bigger than the movie business. It might not be, but they are definitely equal in size. So there's a huge industry where a lot of people are trying to circumvent copy protection and data protection measures that are built into these gaming engines. you might ask, if this is such a big problem, isn't there built-in safety features? Isn't there built-in copy protection? Aren't the files inherently encrypted or something like that? No, that's not the case. The data security is always in hand of the developer. If you look, for example, at Unity Engine, you can do a lot of things with Unity Engine. They have an online store where you can buy third-party code and third-party assets to pull all these different functionalities into the program or the game that you're developing using Unity. But they're not giving you copy protection out of the box. They're not making your files secure. And it's actually the example I gave. If you download any random application that uses augmented reality that's based on Unity or even that's based on ARKit, you can actually get to the source 3D files with a couple of clicks if you know what you're doing. And an attacker will always know what he's doing if he wants to get the files. So that sounds scary. Does it? Doesn't it? I don't know. Who's thought about data security in their AR and VR projects before? Who has done AR and VR projects? Maybe let's do it that way. Okay. Actually, a lot of people. Who actually thought about these sort of issues in their... that's also a good percentage. I would say 70% have done something and 30% thought about it. So of those people who haven't thought about it, was this a complete surprise? Or was security just not related? So who's going out of here completely shocked? Okay. Who's still awake? Okay, good. So what are security conscious ways ahead? What I would recommend, or what we constantly recommend to customers. The first big issue is always transforming the files, to get the files in the format that you have available into a format that's usable. And there's some ways that you don't need to transform the files at all. Maybe your CAD software vendor provides you an augmented or virtual reality tool out of the box, so you can stay within his ecosystem. Maybe you have in-house resources to transform the files for you, so they are covered by your IT security regulations. But as soon as you go outside your own IT security environment, you need to think about, not only can I trust the party who is stripping my files, is their environment, are their PCs or Macs or devices, are they secure, is their network secure, things like that. But you also need to think about, how can I ensure quality of service from their end? How can I ensure that what they are shipping for me to an end user actually fulfills the requirements that I might have when it comes to data security, and making sure that no proprietary information leaks or is contained in CAD files I might intentionally or accidentally be shipping to third parties. And actually for this I don't have an answer, because it's a hugely complex topic. Automated file review or something like that for things that are in them or aren't in them. This is something most of the time that you need to set up a process or a software-based tool for inside your organization or inside your project. It always helps to use automated transformation solutions, which can run either in the cloud or in your own private cloud or on your local hardware. There's a couple available. I'm just listing those two because PXYZ is very popular and Vuframe is my company. So there are those available, and they already help to tackle this problem of transforming files without having a human factor in them. If you can shift your files automatically, then you don't have to ensure then that somebody controls one of the people doing it for you, because we're talking about hours and hours and hours of manual data reduction. So it's a very long and a very boring process. And at the end of the day, mistakes are always made. we had we had projects with big enterprise companies like Siemens, for example, where we found problems in the original CAD files, where the designer of the CAD file made copy and paste errors. They were like duplicating buildings of a big campus, and then they made a copy and paste error, and they put a window in a slot where a door was supposed to be. So even CAD designers make these sort of mistakes, and their job I would call reasonably not boring. Whereas if you're just stripping day in, day out 3D files, mistakes are commonplace. I can tell you that from our first couple of years in the market, where we did a lot of file processing manually, and we talked to our 3D people how they were feeling, and there was just like, it was boring and there were mistakes. The main recommendation I can give is that's always good to be upfront and make security part of any RFP you send out. If you're looking for suppliers, if you're looking for solutions, if you're looking for pilots, or if you're looking to do a POC, address the issue and try to gauge based on the reaction of whoever is doing the project for you, whether it's an internal department or it's an external party, how they react, whether they actually know about the issue, and whether they actually can give you answers that are based on some sort of experience they have. It might not be a deal breaker to pick a supplier because they haven't, or not pick a supplier because they haven't done security aware projects before. It might just be a matter of you shifting aspects of your own project that you want to do. Maybe you can change the circle of end users, or maybe you can change the way of deploying your project. Maybe you don't need to go through a public app store. Maybe you can look into getting a private app store set up for your company. All of these things need to be addressed when you're putting the scope and the specification of your project together. When you do that and you have security at least as 5% of the overall scope of your project in the back of your mind, then you can make sure that critical mistakes don't happen. Another thing I also want to say is security is always an issue, and you can never ever be absolutely safe. You can just be as safe as an attacker's bank account size. So if they have an unlimited amount of money to attack you, you will never be safe. Your countermeasures will never be enough. So security should not be a reason not to do it. Security needs to be a consideration, and security should not be your excuse to hide in the bunker while there's a blue sky outside and not do innovation. Pursue your projects, but try to think about security a little bit. If you think based on today, it might be a factor to what you're doing. It might be a risk to what you're doing. That's actually it. I thank you for your attention. I left a little bit of time at the end for any questions you might have. Thank you.